Okay, well, welcome back to Tech and Learning Live. I'm Kevin Hogan, Content Director for Tech and Learning. We've had a very busy morning so far, and it's great to have Greg Toppo, National Education Writer for USA Today, and the author of the recent book, The Game Believes in You. Greg, appreciate you stopping by to talk with us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So the book came out in April, I believe. Tell us a little bit about the book and why you were inspired to write it.
Sure. Well, it's basically a book about games and learning, and it's trying to take a good look at exactly what's happening in this world. There's been a lot of writing about the theory, about what could be, and I decided I needed to just kind of get into some classrooms and visit some teachers and meet some folks, some game designers, some theorists who are really sort of enacting this stuff in the classroom as we speak. It actually started out as a book about reading, and it very quickly turned into me thinking about media literacy, the kind of media that kids were digesting these days, and video games just sort of popped out in a way they sort of wouldn't go away.
Right.
And once I went down that path, I just started meeting teachers who were using games in really fascinating ways.
Okay.
So I just sort of indulged that.
So this year is the 35th anniversary for Tech and Learning magazine.
Wow. Congratulations.
And thank you. Yeah, it's fantastic to be a part of something like that. But we've covered gaming and education since 1980. I mean, games were part of the whole reason behind it. The Oregon Trail, I think, is a milestone game. Talk a little bit about that evolution and where we are in that state.
I mean, it's really interesting. I talk in the book very early on about how, we don't really, as sort of adults and consumers even now of games, we don't really appreciate that gaming and education is really old. Yeah. I talk about the fact that actually the Oregon Trail, the first kids who played it in Minnesota were 1971, were middle schoolers, on a teletype in a middle school in Minneapolis. And they are now old enough to be grandparents.
Right.
So it's really come along. I mean, I would argue slowly and by fits and starts, but I think the past 5-10 years have seen just a real explosion. Yeah. With things like tablets and smartphones, more people have experience with games, so they get it in a way they never did before.
Right.
And there are more designers, I think, doing smart things with games than ever. So I think it's a really exciting time.
Now, how do you take the inspiration and the fun and excitement of games and that children and students have, and marry it with assessment and school district protocols and acceptable use policies? Is it? I mean,
I think there are two things happening. I think number one, games are all about assessment. I mean, in a way, games are assessment machines, right? Yeah. I mean, you press a button and it assesses you, right? And it tells you, either
high score,
right? Or even just moment to moment. Yeah. You failed or you succeeded, right? So I think that's always been part of gaming. And I think that's a natural for education. I think the second part of your question, though, or the second thing you mentioned, is this idea of sort of protocols and the systems themselves. I think we're really early in that world, and I think it's going to take a few years for that world to be married to the data you get from a game.
Right.
I don't think we're there yet, but it won't be long.
Right. So without having read the book yet, where do you stand on it? I mean, the positives, and are there negatives that involve gaming and education?
I mean, in my mind, the only real negative is badly designed games and people trying to sort of shoehorn games in places that they really don't belong, or asking games to do too much. I never say in the book, and I don't believe that games can save school or rescue education. I just think they're another really good tool that not enough people are looking at, and more people should. Right. I mean, basically what I say is that play is something that we should be looking at more seriously, ironically. Right. So I mean, I guess you could say it's a positive look, but I do have some cautions about not trying to get it to do too much.
Right. So what are you expecting here at the show?
This is my first time at ISTE, and I have no idea what to expect, but I'm already overwhelmed. Let me just say that. I was just at E3 a week and a half ago, and this looks very similar. Sort of the school version of the geek's paradise, I guess.
Right. Well, Greg, thanks for your time. Appreciate you stopping by.
No, it's been great. Thanks.